You know, when we talk about lead poisoning, it kind of feels like a problem from the past, right? Something we dealt with decades ago. But what if I told you that this invisible poison is still out there, hiding in places you'd never expect? Today, we're not just talking about public health, we're jumping headfirst into a real-life medical detective story.
All right, let's get into it. The thing about lead is, you can't see it, you can't smell it, and you can't taste it. That's what makes it such a tricky and dangerous adversary.
I mean, just think about that for a second. It's a pretty scary thought, isn't it? But for some people, this isn't just a what if. It's a reality they're living with, and they don't even know it. And that brings us to our first case.
Okay, look at this number, 42 micrograms per deciliter. This was the actual blood lead level found in a 15-year-old girl. Now, to put that in perspective for you, the official level that sets off all the alarm bells, the point where doctors have to intervene immediately, is 10. Her level was more than 4 times higher than that. This isn't just a minor issue. This is a serious, full-blown poisoning.
So what does a number like 42 actually do to a person? Well, take a look. We're in the zone where the body starts having trouble making hemoglobin, and that's the super important protein in your red blood cells that carries oxygen everywhere. So yeah, that's a big deal. And as you can see, that's really just the beginning. It messes with everything from your gut to your nervous system.
So when you have a number that high, you can bet a full-scale investigation kicks off. This is where public health experts basically become detectives, and their mission is to hunt down the source of the poison.
Now, our patient has a condition called pica. This means she has a compulsion to eat things that aren't food, like soil or moss. For the investigators, this just blew the case wide open. I mean, where do you even start? Is the lead in the soil outside? Is it in the paint on the walls? The list of potential culprits was suddenly enormous.
And here, this is the key piece of evidence. Look at these numbers. Her lead level drops from that high of 42 all the way down to 25. Great! But then it goes back up to 32. Now that shouldn't happen. If you've removed the source of the lead, the level should only go down, right? This told the detectives that either she was still being exposed somehow, or something really strange was going on inside her own body.
So the detectives did what you'd expect. They went after the usual suspects. In older houses, the two biggest culprits are almost always lead paint and old lead water pipes. Time to start testing.
First up, the paint. And yeah, they did find some lead, but look at the results. The levels were pretty low. And more importantly, the paint was in good condition. It wasn't flaking or chipping off, so there wasn't an easy way for it to get into her system. It looked like a dead end.
Okay, what about the water? They tested taps all over the house. And again, nothing. The results were way, way below the World Health Organization's safety limit of 10 micrograms per liter. So the water was clean. The two most obvious sources were not the source.
And this is where the mystery gets really wild. After a 2-year investigation, they never found the source. Never. The best theory the experts could come up with, the exposure happened years ago. See, our bodies can store lead in our bones, where it can just sit dormant for years and years. The toxicologists think that because she was a teenager having growth spurts, her own bones were remodeling and releasing this old lead back into her blood. She was basically being repoisoned from the inside out.
Okay, so that first case was a real head-scratcher. But let's turn the page to a new case file, one where the detectives did crack the code. This time, we're talking about a much younger kid with a totally different set of clues.
So meet our second patient, a 2-year-old boy with anemia. His blood lead level is 10.5. Now, that's not as shockingly high as our first case, but it's just over that crucial line of 10 that triggers an investigation. It's definitely high enough to be causing problems.
So, let's lay out the clues on the detective's board. We've got an old house built before the 70s. There are renovations going on, which means dust everywhere. The family had recently arrived from South Asia, and they had some imported kitchenware. And one more thing, they were using a traditional makeup called Surma on the child every day.
The investigators checked out the usual suspects again, the old house, the renovation dust, but the answer wasn't in the building. It was something much more personal and unexpected. The source was that traditional makeup, the Surma, that was being applied to the child's eyes every single day.
And when they tested that makeup, the results were just jaw-dropping. It contained 40% lead. Let that sink in for a second. A product used for cultural and beauty traditions used on a child daily was almost half lead. The family, of course, stopped using it immediately, and thankfully the boy's lead levels started to come down.
Okay, so these cases show how crucial it is to find the source. But once you do, the next step is breaking that chain of exposure. And this is where we get into the practical stuff. Steps we can all think about to keep ourselves safe. Public health folks have this simple model they use. They call it source, pathway, receptor. The lead is the source. How it gets into you, like breathing dust or ingesting it, is the pathway. And the person is the receptor. Remediation is just the fancy word for breaking any of those links in the chain. So let's start with water, because a lot of us live in older homes. Here's a super simple and effective tip. Before you use any water in the morning for drinking or cooking, just turn on the cold tap and let it run for a couple of minutes. This flushes out the water that's been sitting in the pipes all night, which is where the lead concentration is going to be highest. It's such an easy thing to do. And what if you're worried about contaminated soil, which is a big issue in a lot of cities? The advice here is all about creating barriers and good hygiene. Cover up any bare soil with grass or mulch. Always, always wash your hands after you've been outside in the garden. And if you're growing your own veggies, make sure you wash and peel them. Oh, and a huge one, take your shoes off when you come inside. You don't want to track that soil all over your house. Now for the big one, lead paint. You'd think the solution is to just scrape it all off, right? Well, actually, that's often the worst thing you can do, because it creates a ton of toxic dust. The official advice is often to just seal it in, put a fresh coat of modern lead-free paint over the top. It's often safer, easier, and it effectively breaks the pathway.
So we've seen how these individual cases get solved and how to manage the risks in our own homes. But that kind of begs a bigger question, right? How much do we really know about this problem on a larger scale?
And this next part is pretty mind-boggling. In England, the last time a major population-wide survey was done to check lead levels in children was in the 1990s. That's a whole generation ago. We just assume the problem has gotten better, but the honest truth? We don't have the current data to know for sure.
And when public health experts were asked directly, hey, should we be doing this kind of regular monitoring? The answer was a landslide. 77% said yes, absolutely. The people on the front lines believe we need this data to understand what we're actually dealing with today. And that really leaves us with this one final, really important question. What these cases show us is that lead is a sneaky, persistent threat that can pop up in the most unexpected ways. And if we stop looking for it, if we stop acting like detectives, how can we ever be sure it isn't there?